This is Iowa Talking Points, The Candidates, produced by Studio 5 at Mud Advertising, Totally Iowa Media, and News Talk 1540 KXCL, where you hear from the candidates in contested races in the June 2026 Iowa primary election. Now, Iowa Talking Points, The Candidates. From Studio 5 at Mud and Cedar Falls, here is Jeff Stein.
Well, hello and welcome. There will be a new state of Iowa auditor in January of 2027. It's an open seat, and currently it's the only statewide office held by a Democrat. There are two Republicans seeking their party's nomination to be on the November general election ballot, and one of them joins us today. Chris Cournoyer is a Republican running for state auditor. Her website is cournoyerforiowa.com. She is currently the lieutenant governor of the state and a former member of the state Senate, a business owner. Much to talk about with Chris Cournoyer. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Oh, thank you for welcoming me, Jeff.
Tell us why you decided to make the run for state auditor.
Well, I was serving as lieutenant governor. The governor had, the previous fall, had invited me to be her lieutenant governor to replace Adam Gregg, and that was, of course, the honor of a lifetime. And I thought it was going to be a little bit longer than it was, but about 4 months in, the governor decided not to run again for another term, which changed my future in the role. So I was thinking of what my options were and how I could continue to serve Iowans. And with my technology background and my focus on energy or government efficiency and alignment and the work that we've done there, it seemed like a logical move to run for the auditor's seat for me.
It's a self-explanatory title, state auditor, to a large degree, but tell us from a constitutional standpoint what the duties of the office are, and what are some things that you would like to do as state auditor beyond the bare bones of what's constitutionally provided for?
Sure. Well, the role of the auditor is to audit the books of all state entities that collect money from the taxpayers. So it's school boards, cities, counties, state departments, and then also it oversees the money that comes in from the federal level to ensure that it's being used appropriately and responsibly. The role of the auditor also investigates anytime there's a question as to whether or not something's being done properly, or if there's a whistleblower situation. The auditor would then go in and perform an investigation to root out that waste, fraud, and abuse and hold those bad actors accountable. Additionally, they do performance audits to go in and help see where efficiencies can be made at all levels of government.
Now, this, by that definition, which is what's in the rules, the Constitution, the laws, is very much a numbers sort of position. It is not necessarily one that would lead itself to partisanship or politics. So if that's the case, and obviously folks run as partisans, how does that play out? How does politics stay in its lane and good governance stay in its lane?
Well, correct. It is a partisan position, but it should not be political. The auditor that audits anything should not have their opinion known to anyone as they're conducting the audits. If we're expecting it to be a fair and unbiased and honest audit, the politics should be taken completely out of it. And I think we've seen that through the Secretary of State's office, the Treasurer's office, and I think they do a good job of keeping politics out of their jobs. And I think that we certainly need the auditor to be as non-biased and non-political as possible. I don't care if you're a Republican, Democrat, or independent. If you are wasting taxpayer dollars, you need to be held accountable. And in speaking to previous auditors, Mary Moseman and Dave Voigt before her, they both really instilled upon me, you may not make friends in your own party if you're doing your job, but your job is to look out for the taxpayer no matter what the political association is of who you're auditing.
There's also a relationship necessary between any state office and the legislature, because there may be rules, there may be laws, things that need to be changed, things that you want to prevent from being changed. Talk a bit about that relationship between, in this case, the auditor's office and the legislature, because, again, you served in the legislature.
I did. And, it's important to have those relationships established, positive relationships and respectful relationships, because there are things that need to be modernized. I found that when I served 6 years in the state Senate and saw that there were were many things in state government that needed to be modernized during my time there. So I think working with the statewide elected officials to continually enhance and evolve how they conduct their the businesses in their offices to make sure they're in alignment with the way things work in the modern times. They might have made sense 40 years ago, but maybe there's a better way to do things more efficiently and effectively. So I think having served in the legislature, I know how that works and how important it is to make your case when something needs to change and do that effectively in a bipartisan manner.
Having served as lieutenant governor, having been a state senator, you've been able to see the auditor's office from the appropriate distance. I trust, again, your conversation with past office holders, but as you're deciding whether to seek the office, you probably gave it a good look in terms of how it's being operated. What are some things that perhaps would help enhance the office? What should be done differently potentially if you're auditor of state?
Well, I think first of all, just showing up for the job. I've seen the current auditor seems to be out and about around the state, promoting himself for his next political office. In this case, it's governor. So I think just showing up in the office and being present. His office is right next to mine, and more often than not, the door is locked and the lights are off. So just being present and providing that leadership and the resources to the 100 or so auditors and CPAs that work in the audit, I think is really important. I'd like to get in there and just really audit the auditor's office, really, and just do a survey of the people that work there and just understand how I can provide leadership and resources to them so that they can do their job better. And one thing I really want to focus on is the timeliness of the audits that are being done. There are many cases, and you can see this on the auditor's public website, where audits are taking a year and a half, 2 years, and sometimes even 3 years to be completed. And I think we can do better than that by modernizing, using technology, and just being to be a better steward of the taxpayer dollar. We need to do it in a timely manner so entities around the state can make changes to better oversee and be better stewards of the taxpayer dollar.
In a somewhat analogous way, when we're talking about the legal system and we're talking about crimes, if you do not have swift and certain prosecution and punishment, there's no deterrent effect. It's sort of the same way because some of these situations, they're unearthing wrongdoing or at the very least mismanagement that dates back 6 and 8 years, and it's really hard to even find the people who might have been involved.
Right, and that's correct. And there's a great example in McCausland, a small city in Scott County, over by where I live in eastern Iowa, where they had a city clerk that was skimming out of the city funds, and they reported it to the auditor's office for an investigation. It took the auditor's office 8 months to complete that investigation. Meanwhile, they couldn't arrest the person, and it really put a burden on that local government. It's a small town. It was a small amount of money. It shouldn't have taken the auditor's office 8 months to conduct that investigation and hold that person accountable. And then to add insult to injury, the auditor's office then submitted them with a bill for their services that took way too long to conduct. So I think there's a lot of efficiencies. There's a lot we can do in the auditor's office to work better with those local governments that we're auditing and help them with enhancing their own systems and implementing best practices and generally accepting accounting principles. I think there's a lot of opportunities there. I have a degree in computer science and a background in the technology sector where we install technology to help our clients run more efficiently and deliver better services. And I think there's a lot of opportunities in the auditor's office to be able to do that so that we can root out waste, fraud, and abuse, conduct those audits in a more timely manner, and then also help our entities around the state, our local governments, implement best practices so that they can be better stewards of the taxpayer dollars as well.
Well, let's go a little further with that in particular, because we like to have home rule. We like to have cities and counties have some autonomy. We don't like Des Moines being the all-knowing entity, at least some of us who live outside of Des Moines. I understand there is that tug. Are there some protocols, maybe it's software, maybe it's procedures, that would help either standardize things so that you can be more effective and efficient, or is it premature to ask before you've actually audited the auditor's office?
Well, I mean, I think I need to get in there and see what's going on, but there is a lot of opportunities. I've done some research on what's being done in other states in terms of the use of technology to standardize things across the state. Like you mentioned, there's opportunities to use AI, artificial intelligence, to root through the data. I mean, you always have to have that human component. It's not to replace auditors, but it's to enhance and root through that data in a more timely manner, in a more efficient and effective manner to root out those anomalies and those outliers. So I think there are a lot of opportunities there. It can be done in a very cost-effective manner that doesn't put additional burden on our local governments. And, we have a lot of really small towns out there that maybe have a part-time clerk and they don't have the time or the energy to, they're being paid to manage the books of the city. They don't necessarily have time to investigate what kind of technologies they can use. So I'd like to implement something similar to what we're doing with Empower Rural Iowa, where we have kind of a SWAT team where cities can apply for grants to implement technology and best practices, and then we can have a SWAT team or a group that go out there and help them implement those best practices and implement that technology. So I think that would really help a lot of those cities and especially the smaller governments and school districts and counties that just maybe don't have that expertise at that level, but we could come in and help with that expertise and really work along beside them to implement those best practices. Because really, we're looking at reducing property taxes, which are taxes levied at the local level, and like what we've done at the state level, we've been able to reduce taxes at the state level because of the governor's realignment and the efficiencies that Governor Reynolds has been able to implement with the legislature. We need to do that at the local level as well. Now that we've led by example at the state level and show local governments how they can do things differently with recommendations from the DOGE task force, with technology and with efficiencies to help them be able to lower and sustain dropping taxes, property taxes at the local level. The only way we're going to do that is by implementing technology and best practices to do things differently than we've been doing so far.
Chris Cournoyer is a Republican who is running for state auditor. CournoyerForIowa.com is the website. We'll take a short break now, and when we come back, we'll talk a little more about some of the work that she has done as lieutenant governor and as a state senator that would be helpful in this position. Iowa Talking Points continues in a moment.
All the great news talk programs you love from KXCL on your radio can be with you wherever you go.
I'm Todd Starnes.
This is Mark Levin.
I'm Tim Harwood.
Bill O'Reilly here.
I'm Kim Commando.
Hey, it's Glenn Beck.
I'm Jeff Stein.
Just download the free KXCL mobile app. You can find us in the App Store or Google Play. Make sure you never miss a second of the conversation. Download the KXCL app today. It's a great way to stay connected to where Iowa comes to talk.
One opportunity. Change your career. Mudd Advertising is hiring product specialists. $18 an hour, paid weekly. That's 52 weeks a year, plus record-breaking profit sharing. Let me repeat, $18 an hour plus record-breaking profit sharing. But we're just getting started. The best in the business, 401k, company match, gold standard health plans, on-site fitness center, generous paid time off, and so much more. Apply today and don't look back.
You're watching Iowa Talking Points, the candidates. Here again is Jeff Stein.
Welcome back. Our guest is Chris Cournoyer. She is the current lieutenant governor, Republican candidate for state auditor. The website is CournoyerForIowa.com. And in the last segment, you talked a bit about Empower Rural Iowa. That's one of the responsibilities you have as lieutenant governor. But before we jump to that, let's go back a little further. Tell the folks about your background and what led you to public service.
Oh, boy. Well, my background is in computer science. So I was a nerd back in the 80s before it was cool to be a nerd. It was something that my dad and I really enjoyed doing together as I was growing up in the 80s, and got a degree in computer science and went to work for Anderson Consulting, which is now Accenture, implementing enterprise-wide software systems around the world. And when I had my first child in 1997, I needed to have something that was a little bit more family-friendly to motherhood. So I stopped working at Anderson and I started my own website development business in 1997, and I ran that successfully for 27 years until I became lieutenant governor. So that enabled me to be home with my children and involved in my community. I worked in at the library and the Chamber of Commerce. I coached sports teams. I had a robotics team, a coding team, and I was a reserve deputy in the Scott County Sheriff's Office and PTA and all that stuff that you do when you have kids and you're an engaged member of the community. And I really had a lot of gratification being involved in the community and being able to use my time, talents, and treasures to support my local community. So, a lot of people, or some people, grow up thinking, I want to run for office. I want to be president or governor. That was never on my radar. But in December of 2012, the Sandy Hook shooting happened. And at the time, 20 of the 26 victims in that shooting were first graders. And that happened to be the same age as my twin boys, who are now freshmen at the University of Iowa. And so it really impacted me as a mama bear about how are we keeping our kids safe at school? Because at the time, in 2012, there was no lock-in. There was no buzz-in system at our schools. The door was unlocked and you were in the front office. So I called my school board member and to see how we were keeping kids safe at school, and he didn't return my phone calls. And so, Mama Bear gets a bee in her bonnet, and I started paying attention to board minutes and then attending board meetings. And finally, a friend of mine said, if you don't think he's doing a good job, you should run against him. And I resisted that, of course, at first. And then I realized if I either need to do something about it or I need to just stop complaining. So I decided to run against him. I was a four-sport athlete in high school, so I got competitive, and I beat him with 78% of the vote. So I flipped that seat. And I got on the school board, and I really took my job seriously as being a steward of the taxpayer dollar. I'm really proud of the fact that we lowered the levy by 41 cents as assessments were going up in the Pleasant Valley District, and just also making sure that every student that went to Pleasant Valley had a great educational experience that prepared them for post-secondary success. So that was very important to me. I truly enjoyed being on the school board and making those local decisions to help the kids in our community. And then I was recruited to run for the state Senate. And that was another seat that was held by a Democrat that needed to be flipped. And they thought with the right candidate, they could flip the seat. So in 2018, I was convinced to run, and I knocked on 11,000 doors that summer, and I lost 21 pounds, and I flipped the seat by 10 points and got into the state Senate. And I really enjoyed my 6 years there. I was reelected in 2022. I was the chair of the technology committee where we were able to leverage my technology background to update laws to include the use of technology in the commission of crimes and consumer data privacy laws. So I was very proud of leading on that, involved in the education and education budget, but also worked a lot on the governor's realignment bills to implement some of those. She was kind of doing Doge before Doge was a thing, but realigning government to just run it more efficiently. And I'll give you an example. When the governor went from 37 to 16 cabinet seats and combined some of those departments. Before that, every department had its own IT department. They were doing their own software procurement. There were licenses everywhere that no one was keeping track of. And by putting all the departments under one umbrella, we've already saved taxpayers over $200 million. And to me, that's just the tip of the iceberg. There's so many opportunities to run government more like a business and leverage technology that is available to us. And we learned a lot about how to leverage technology to deliver services during COVID. And I think we can continue that with my background in the auditor's office. So, as lieutenant governor, I've co-chaired the Empower Rural Iowa committee that really helps provide resources to our rural communities to ensure that they continue to thrive. I've also chaired the STEM Council for Science, Technology, Engineering, and Math to prepare our students and align their skills with the workforce needs of Iowa. And then also I'm chairing the Governor's America 250 Task Force for Iowa to really tell the story of how Iowa's been part of the fabric of America over the last 250 years.
That's a broad portfolio,
yes,
quite obviously. But when you consider the state auditor, in one respect, there is the audit function, and one might think of that as narrow. But because of the fact that you're dealing with all of these different entities, whether they're county, city, school boards, and the largest county and the smallest county, and you have to treat them all the same, it's probably helpful to have that kind of a background. How can the auditor's office make sure that everybody is functioning at the highest level, best practices, while at the same time understanding that the city of Des Moines has a whole different infrastructure than Zwingle, for example, right?
For sure, in eastern Iowa. So I think it's very important to just be accountable and transparent, and then have very well described and laid out expectations. We provide the generally accepting accounting principles to the entities that conduct the audits across the state, and I think we just need to be very clear. We need to have an open door where we're available to answer questions, but to have those guidelines and standards out there so that it is understood, no matter you're a large urban center or a very small rural community, that is very clear what the expectation is when you are overseeing the dollars that you're bringing in from your local taxpayers. I think it's just very important that we have an open door policy and we are available as a resource, not fighting against, but complementing the work of local government and helping provide resources for best practices and implementation of technology where it makes sense.
Now, as a state senator, you had a certain role in state government. Being lieutenant governor, very different role. You have a sense of how all of the agencies work together. Mm-hmm. How is that going to help you in being more effective as state auditor? Yeah,
well, I think serving on a local school board, I certainly understand how that works at the local level and just how to communicate and advocate for things at the state level, and then working with my counties and as a state senator, and then working at the state level in the Senate, working with the legislators, and then already having established relationships with the other statewide and the people that are working at the Capitol, I think is really important. And having positive, respectful relationships, I think is an advantage for me going into the role, knowing having those relationships already established, but also having a reputation as somebody that has a strong technology background, but also I think I've preserved my integrity while I've been in these roles as an elected official, and I think just having a reputation as someone that does what I say I'm going to do, and I'm a very honest person who's going to work hard for the citizens of Iowa, and I think my track record over my 6 years in the Iowa Senate, and then my 6 years as a school board member, and then the last year and a half as lieutenant governor has proven that I'm looking out for the taxpayer of Iowa. Public service is something that I find a lot of gratification in, and I'm just really looking forward to continuing to serve the citizens of Iowa, and with really the background that I have that I think is pretty unique in this position.
Chris Cournoyer is a Republican. She is running for state auditor in the June primary. CournoyerForIowa.com is the website. More on Iowa Talking Points, the candidates, in a moment.
One opportunity. Change your career. Mudd Advertising is hiring product specialists. $18 an hour, paid weekly. That's 52 weeks a year, plus record-breaking profit sharing. Let me repeat, $18 an hour plus record-breaking profit sharing. But we're just getting started. The best in the business: 401k, company match, gold standard health plans, on-site fitness center, generous paid time off, and so much more. Apply today and don't look back.
Watch all the programs in the Iowa Talking Points series online at iowatalkingpoints.com. Iowa Talking Points, the candidates, continues with Jeff Stein.
And we continue with Chris Cournoyer, the current lieutenant governor, who is a Republican running for the office of state auditor in the June 2026 primary. CournoyerForIowa.com is her website. And as mentioned, there is a contested Republican primary. So as Republicans are going to go and cast a ballot, Why should they select your name as opposed to your opponent?
Well, I think my experience at the local level as a school board member, and then also at the state level in the Iowa Senate, and now as lieutenant governor, I have a lot of really good experience working at the state level. I know the people that are in the arena there, and I bring a lot of experience from being a business owner for 27 years, as well as a technology background that I think that we can bring some modernization to the office and how we root out waste, fraud, and abuse, and audit the money that's brought in from the taxpayers at the local level, state level, and then also at the federal level. Things that are happening in Minnesota with the federal money that's coming in should never have happened. And, working together with all the entities at the local, state, and executive level, I think is really important to make sure that we have checks and balances in place. We're working together as a cohesive team. And I think my background is, somebody of integrity and innovation. That I think is sorely needed in that office, just to get to work, take the politics out of it, and get to work for the people of Iowa.
What's the role of government generally as it pertains to the state auditor's office? Because there are some folks who run for public office who have a more expansive view of the role of government as opposed to others. So from a broad sense, what's your view of the role of government at the state level?
Well, I think it's to provide services, very specific services to the citizens of Iowa, and do it at the most efficient and effective manner possible so that we can lessen the tax burden on the Iowans. I mean, you hear it all the time about how people are being taxed out of their homes at the local level, and how the tax burden affects people of all ages, and no matter what situation you are, and the way we run business. So, the 6 years that I was in the Iowa Senate, we cut taxes all 6 times I was there. And the way we were able to do that was to implement government efficiencies, lessen regulations, and take the burden off of our citizens, and let them lead with innovation. The Senate district that I represented over in Eastern Iowa, they just wanted you to cut taxes and stay out of their lives. And so, there is a very specific role that government needs to do in terms of setting up the infrastructure for our citizens to live up to their fullest potential, and then get out of the way and don't overtax them, and certainly do not waste the money that they are earning to pay into the government to provide those services. So I think the auditor's role in ensuring that every penny that is paid into the system is being spent according to code and according to the laws is very important. It needs to be done in a timely manner, and the people of Iowa should be ensured that the taxpayers' watchdog, the auditor, is doing their job to make sure that all the money that's being brought in is being spent appropriately, and help our local governments and our state governments with those performance reviews to help them implement best practices and run as efficiently as possible, so we can continue to cut taxes and sustain those tax cuts.
So you are a Republican, but there are different shades of Republicans, just as there are different shades of Democrats. And so I'll give you the opportunity, because, again, we're talking about a primary election. Mm-hmm. If you were to define what it means for you to be a Republican, what the standards are. I don't like labels, so I'll just let you explain what sort of a Republican, or what should a Republican be in your view?
Well, I think the person that is elected to this position puts their hand on the Constitution, on the Bible, and pledges to uphold the Constitution of the United States and of Iowa. So I think it's very important that I take that oath on the Bible very seriously, and follow the laws, and then if there are laws that need to be updated to better protect the taxpayer of Iowa, I'll work with the legislature to implement those laws. So I think, again, having that reputation of integrity and honesty and innovation is something that I bring to the table. And when I was in the Senate, I represented the pulse of the people that I represented very well. I listened to all people. I think it's very important to talk to all people to ensure that we're representing all Iowans and implementing the best policies to help the most people that we can. And the auditor's role is to ensure that those laws get implemented in the right way when there's money involved, and making sure that the people feel like that they are being treated fairly and the money that they are earning, that they're working hard to earn, is being spent appropriately.
Who have been some of the mentors that you've had in the political realm? And what is it that example has helped you in shaping your role as a public official?
Yeah, I mean, I've had a lot of really strong mentors, I think, over time. I mean, I think, Governor Reynolds has certainly been somebody that inspired me before I even ran for office. Her passion for STEM education was something that really caught my attention. And then just, people that really, put the politics aside and really try to do what's right by Iowans. I try to, make decisions based on, a moral compass that I think is very important to have in this business, and be able to put my head on the pillow every night and sleep with a good conscience. But just understanding what it means to be an Iowan, and we're conservative people, and we Iowa nice. I was just explaining to somebody Iowa nice the other day, but I feel like in this political climate with the division that we see, that it's just so important to just show kindness and understand that at the end of the day we're all Iowans and we all need to work together. We need to all make sure we're rowing in the same direction and treating people fairly. And I think that's the minimum of what people should expect. But like I mentioned, just taking the politics and the snarkiness out of this role, I think needs to happen, and get back to the business of protecting the taxpayer. And you really shouldn't hear about the auditor very much in the news or in the media. The only time you should hear from the auditor's office is when they are protecting the taxpayer, and they've rooted out that waste, fraud, and abuse. So that's what I aim to do as the state auditor. I'm not seeking higher office. I'm not using it as a political stepping stone. It's just something that I saw as something where it's a position where I believe that I bring a unique skill set with my background in technology and my background serving at the local and state level, and now in the lieutenant governor's office. I bring a unique perspective there and experience, so that I think I can enhance and really make the office better for the taxpayer of Iowa and modernize it.
Chris Cournoyer is a Republican, one of the candidates for state auditor in the June primary election. Our final few moments with her in a moment as Iowa Talking Points continues. Iowa has a wonderful heritage, and each day I'll share these stories of historic people and events with you. I'm Jeff Stein. Join me for the Iowa Almanac program and learn more about this great place we call home. Now 7 days a week. Listen on radio stations across the state, via podcast, or at iowaalmanac.com.
One opportunity. Change your career. Mudd Advertising is hiring product specialists. $18 an hour, paid weekly. That's 52 weeks a year, plus record-breaking profit sharing. Let me repeat, $18 an hour plus record-breaking profit sharing. But we're just getting started. The best in the business: 401k, company match, gold standard health plans, on-site fitness center, generous paid time off, and so much more. Apply today and don't look back.
You're watching Iowa Talking Points, the candidates. Here again is Jeff Stein.
And we continue one more segment with Chris Cournoyer, the current lieutenant governor, Republican, running for state auditor in the June primary. CournoyerForIowa.com is the website. We've mentioned this is an open seat because the current office holder is seeking the role of governor. In his current role as auditor, sometimes he has made some rather pointed comments about other state offices, the governor's office in particular, and about things the legislature has done. I think those are probably even more pointed when he is officially on the campaign trail as opposed to in an official capacity. Give some reaction, if you'd be so kind. When you hear those sorts of things, are there things that you feel, because you are working with the governor as lieutenant governor, that the record needs to be set straight on, or are the things that are being discussed about the auditor's office, is that a lot of noise, if you will, as opposed to substance?
Well, I think it's a lot of rhetoric, of course. I mean, it's politicizing the auditor's office, which I don't think is an appropriate role for the auditor to be so political. And I'll give you an example. Auditor Sand was very critical of Governor Reynolds's educational savings account. Very critical of the program, very vocal on social media, and when he was out around, the state doing his selfies and eating breakfast pizza. But I think it's really inappropriate for the auditor to give an opinion about the educational savings accounts and then demand to do an audit on those educational savings account program. And he was very vocal in how against he was of the programs, and then he expects that the citizens of Iowa are going to believe that he's going to be able to conduct an honest, unbiased audit of the program, and that's exactly what he wanted to do. He was, we changed the rules for the auditor to ensure that there was some guide rails on the office, a letter of engagement to initiate an audit and to protect the privacy of people who were being audited and what could be accessed and what was appropriate for the auditor to access as they conduct those audits. But he refused to conduct or submit one of those letters of engagement. And then when he finally did, all of the information that he had requested was actually already online publicly on the Department of Education website, which was interesting. But once he did finally conduct the audit, he found no issues with the program. With all that rhetoric and negativity and criticisms of the program, then his auditor's office didn't find any issues with it. So I thought that was interesting. But again, I think it really demonstrates how inappropriate it is for the auditor to be stating political opinions about something that they would eventually or intend to audit. It's just not appropriate. So when I hear that kind of thing, it kind of makes me double down and just remember that my role as auditor is to protect the taxpayers and not make my opinion known until the data is examined and the results are in.
The current auditor has also, in response to some who have said these audits are taking too long, depending on the specific situation, sometimes he will state publicly that it's a delay that was caused by, for example, the Department of Education or the governor's office or changes in the legislature, which I believe would have been made when you were a voting member. Again, is there any merit to that, or is it, again, just part of politicizing of this whole process?
Well, I think it's politicizing. I mean, like I said, everything that he needed to conduct the audit for the educational savings account program was already publicly available on the Department of Education's website. In fact, they took screenshots of it when they provided it to him to show that data was already available to not only the public, but to his office. So it's just more rhetoric. It's used that he uses as a political stepping stone for seeking higher office in the state and to get political points with those that agree with him, I suppose. But again, the fact that bringing politics in the office, I think, just needs to we need to get the politics out and get back to work of auditing the books and taking care of the taxpayers and getting political opinions out of there.
You've had the varied career that you mentioned, including as a business owner and operator. There are many employees in this office of state auditor, and so one of the roles, obviously, of the elected official is to manage the office. Talk a bit, if you would, about your skill set and how it dovetails with what you would be doing in that particular office.
Yeah, well, I mean, my experience in corporate America, as well as a small business owner for 27 years, and then working in various committees and organizations around my community. I mean, I've certainly worked with a lot of people, managing people as committee chairs and various other roles that I've had. And, I think it's important to listen, just go in and listen to the people that are talking, have a survey of what's working well in this office and what can be improved on, and what can I do to provide leadership and resources and support to the employees in the auditor's office so that they feel like they're being supported, they have what they need, they have the tools that they need to go do the jobs the job of auditing across the state in a timely manner. So I want to be an open door to the employees that I oversee. There's a lot of great examples of people that lead departments in the state of Iowa right now that I've been watching carefully to see how they conduct their office, how they support their employees, and give them the tools they need to succeed and get the job done.
Is this an office in 2026, 2027, and beyond that needs to have everyone sit in Des Moines, or can there be, in essence, I don't want to say regional outposts, I'm not trying to add layers, but having a connectedness for someone who's handling an audit in Northwest Iowa who is actually based in Northwest Iowa, for example?
I think there's a lot of opportunity. As we've seen people work remotely very effective, I think that it's important that we do have people working outside of Des Moines that truly understand. We all know, and I call it the Des Moines bubble, but we know that what's going on up in Northwest Iowa is very different than Southeast Iowa, and people that live in those communities that know the people that live in those regions and have those relationships can best work in those areas. So I think there is opportunity to allow people to work remotely across the state to better provide those services. And back to that example I gave you earlier in McCausland, not once did the auditor's office drive over to McCausland to conduct that investigative audit. Everything that they did had to be the people of McCausland had to send documents back and forth to Des Moines, and it was very inefficient. If they could have just gone over there and spent a few days with the employees and the mayor over there, they could have got that done in I believe, a much shorter time than 8 months. So I think having people around the state working remotely with the proper oversight is entirely appropriate at this time.
Well, you are asking Iowa Republicans to select you as their candidate for auditor. I'll let you take the last couple of minutes of the program and speak to those voters directly.
Sure. Well, my name is Chris Cournoyer. Cournoyer is like Iowa corn. Chris Cournoyer. I've served at the local level on the school board. I'm very proud of the fact that we lowered the levy as assessments were going up, and we implemented efficiencies to sustain those tax cuts. I served 6 years in the Iowa Senate, where I worked very hard on consumer data privacy bills and also the governor's realignment to allow us to cut taxes. All 6 years I was there, and implement government efficiencies so we could continue to cut taxes and sustain those tax cuts. And I've been also working with the governor as lieutenant governor, working to support all Iowans across the state. And I want to bring my technology background to bring integrity and innovation back to the auditor's office, take the politics out of the office, and truly represent the taxpayers of Iowa. You have earned the money that goes into the state government, and as auditor, I will work hard to ensure that every penny that you pay in the system is used effectively and appropriately, and I will work with our local governments and our state entities to implement best practices and generally accepting accounting principles and technology to help oversee the money that's being brought in and make sure that we can root out waste, fraud, and abuse and hold bad actors accountable and really modernize the auditor's office so that we can protect you, the taxpayers. So I humbly ask for your vote on June 2nd and again in the November election so that we can take the politics out and bring integrity and innovation back to the auditor's office. So my name again is Chris Cournoyer, and I would appreciate your vote on June 2nd.
Chris Cournoyer is a Republican running for state auditor. CournoyerForIowa.com is the website. Thank you so much. Good luck in the campaign.
Thank you, Jeff. I appreciate the opportunity.
And that brings us to the close of this edition of Iowa Talking Points. Thank you so much for being with us, and join us again for our next conversation in this series.
This has been Iowa Talking Points, The Candidates, produced by Studio 5 at Mud Advertising, Totally Iowa Media, and News Talk 1540 KXCL. For more information on this series, go to iowatalkingpoints.com.